Welcome to this edition of the Perspective in Inflammation podcast, a series brought to you by the CSF, which shines a spotlight onto experts in the field of inflammation. My name is Professor Anka Katrina from the Karolinska Institute, and with me is my fellow CSF Steering Committee member, Professor Leonard Calabrese from the R.J. Fassenmeyer Center for Clinical Immunology. We will be discussing the use of the live zoster vaccine in inflammation shortly, but first I would like to understand a little bit more about Professor Calabrese. So one question I have is, what attracted you to the field of rheumatology?
It's a good question. I had not really was headed toward rheumatology. I wanted to do clinical immunology and do immunodeficiency work. And back at that time, my mentor was a rheumatologist, and I worked in his lab, and we started doing immunodeficiency work, but in adults there wasn't much business in the pre-HIV era, and I became progressively sucked into the world of rheumatology and HIV and biologics, and here we are.
Could you tell us a little bit more about your center based in Ohio?
Yes. I work at the Cleveland Clinic. We're a global enterprise for healthcare. We have our main facilities in the Midwest in the United States, so we have major campuses in Florida and Nevada, and we have international outposts in Canada and England, in Abu Dhabi. It's a large research clinical education institute, and I've spent my entire career there, trained there, and I still work there.
A very international place to be in.
Yes.
Fantastic.
We have a lot of fun.
And your research spans numerous therapy areas within inflammation. Could you highlight your key interests for us?
Yeah, my immunology center does a number of things. We certainly deal in all things immunologic, but we have a particular interest in the intersection of rheumatology and infectious diseases. We have the only combined rheumatology infectious disease fellowship in the United States. People get duly boarded in each specialty. So we're interested in infections as etiologies or comorbidities or complications of immunosuppressive therapy in our diseases. We also do adult immunodeficiency work. And then we have a very significant vasculitis center at our place. And within my center, we focus on neuroinflammation and neurovasculitis. So those are the things that usually keep us busy.
And going towards the more specific aim of our discussion today, the herpes zoster in inflammation, can you provide us an overview of the herpes zoster in inflammation, and is this an unmet need?
Yeah, zoster is a complication that is kind of coming to the fore in the field of rheumatology for a variety of reasons. Everyone understands that varicella causes chicken pox. It becomes a dormant infection residing within dorsal root ganglia. And then over time, particularly related to immunosenescence, we are increasingly vulnerable to reactivation in what we know as shingles or zoster. In rheumatology, our rates of zoster are palpably higher than the general population, age-matched population, largely due to concomitant immunosuppressive therapy. So we are actually in the business of making zoster. It has been widely appreciated, and in heavily immunosuppressed populations like lupus patients and a lot of steroids, rates are extremely high. But in RA, it's been kind of a smoldering issue till the introductions of kinase inhibitors. And thus far, at least with the approved drugs so far, it appears to be a class effect of increasing vulnerability to zoster. We are concerned about zoster for several reasons. First of all, it's a very morbid disease. Post-herpetic neuralgia is a formidable complication. Secondly, we've demonstrated previously that incident zoster is also a risk factor for stroke. So it's something that we would like to avoid. And then the past decade has led to the introduction of two effective zoster vaccines. One, the live virus vaccine, which is the predominant vaccine used globally, and then more recently the recombinant adjuvanted vaccine, which is now the preferred vaccine in the United States, but there's an availability limitation of it. It's become so popular. So both of these vaccines are effective. The live vaccine has about a 50% protection rate for about 3 years, about 66% protection rate from post-herpetic neuralgia. The recombinant vaccine is about 97% effective, and irrespective of age. So these are the vaccines that are available. EULAR has just come out with new vaccine recommendations, and strongly considering these vaccines in select populations, particularly over the age of 50. And we believe that patients on kinase inhibitors should be strongly considered for these as well.
So it's more strongly like a recommendation in those that are going to be on such a treatment. What about other highly immunosuppressed rheumatoid arthritis patients? Would that be something to consider, or?
Yeah, I think that in general, individuals over the age of 50, these are fairly strong recommendations internationally that they are eligible for this vaccine, whichever vaccine you have available at this point in time. The recombinant vaccine is really not an issue since it's killed, obviously, and the major concerns are on adverse event profile from it, but we're learning more about it. The live vaccine is a live vaccine, so we know that we can cautiously immunize people who are modestly immunosuppressed on standard doses of methotrexate and low doses of prednisone and other conventional synthetic DMARDs. We've learned at this meeting in the VERVE trial by Dr. Winthrop and Dr. Curtis, in almost over 600 patients, giving the live vaccine concomitantly of patients on TNF inhibitors, there was no safety signal in this randomized placebo-controlled trial. So I think for the global population of providers who are using live vaccine, this is a major step forward, and hopefully the recombinant vaccine will learn more about its safety profile and it will become more widely available as we move ahead.
And moving ahead or looking forward, what are the key upcoming developments that our listeners should be aware of in this field of combining infection knowledge on immunology and rheumatology?
Well, I think it's a natural fit for a variety of reasons. First of all, there are a number of infections, particularly viral infections, that can be the etiologies of rheumatic syndromes. We're seeing the death knell of hepatitis C because we're globally curing it, but still a lot of abstracts at this meeting that account for that. HIV is a global pandemic still. We've not conquered it, we're controlling it, and we've learned a lot of lessons regarding immune diseases. More importantly, all chronic infections are formidable comorbidities, so we need to recraft our therapies for rheumatoid arthritis and other immunosuppressive illnesses around these complications. You can't treat a patient with chronic hepatitis B the same way you treat a patient without it. So this is an area of management that's very important. And then finally, the intersection of infectious disease and rheumatology for complications is a burgeoning area. Particularly our targeted therapies and combined therapies, a wide variety of serious and opportunistic infections. And while our ID colleagues are extraordinarily skilled at treating these infections, they're not very much help for us in terms of how we recraft our immunosuppression. So having people who are trained in both areas has really been eye-opening and very welcoming by the infectious disease community and very needed by the rheumatology community. And then lastly, total prevention. We hashtag why I vaccinate. I gave a vaccine presentation on Sunday to a very packed group here that I'll leave my last comment as we as rheumatologists, we need to take a more active role in global vaccination from all of our patients who are eligible for flu vaccine to our immunosuppressed patients. We need to spread the word and be passionate about this, that we have to, people are vaccinated not only to protect themselves, to protect other vulnerable people. So it's been very, very gratifying at this meeting, a lot of uptake on that, and I hope to see us become more involved.
And a lot of things remains to be done, which is very good and interesting.
Yes.
Thank you for your time, Professor Calabrese. We hope that our listeners have enjoyed our discussion today and gained some insight into herpes zoster in inflammatory disease. Please don't forget to subscribe to the CSF on your favorite podcast app and visit the CSF site for free access educational material, including summary slides, author interviews, and a monthly podcast hosted by the CSF chairman, Professor Ian McInnes.